Welcome to Knicks Home Court with your host. My name is Greg Armstrong. This is episode number 74. I decided I'll give you a Thanksgiving special episode. There's just a couple of things I wanted to talk about concerning our Knicks. And first, I want to start with Kristaps Porzingis. I know on yesterday's podcast, I said that he didn't have a good game. And let me explain what I mean by that. I don't judge games by shooting percentages all the time, or really most of the time, because what I really look at is are you playing the right way? Are you playing within the team's offense? Because if you're playing within the scheme and that scheme is good, most nights you're going to do well rather than do bad. In other words, if you don't have a shot, most coaches scheme for that. If teams double team Kristaps Porzingis, the Knicks scheme for that. That's why you saw Hardaway going off. So when you stay within this offensive scheme, it has a lot to do with trusting other players. Other players knowing they're going to get an opportunity to shine as well. Everybody gets shine. Like that song used to say, I shine, you shine. That's a great team offense. And I always mention team because you know what? Team is actually a part of life. You don't get anywhere in life without team. Without even in individual sports like tennis and boxing, they always think their trainers and the people in their corner, that's their team. But in basketball, your team is on the court with you. And, of course, you have the doctors and the coaching staff. That's part of the team. But I'm talking about on the court. And so when I say Kristaps didn't have a good game, obviously he scored 22 points, but he scored 22 points on 21 shots, which is not great efficiency. And again, the whole thing about that is, all right, let me give an example. Kobe Bryant, to me, is one of the greatest players in the history of basketball. Actually, in his prime, I put him ahead of LeBron James. Now, a lot of people may argue with that. And you know what they're going to do? They're going to look at the stats. Look at his efficiency rating. It was only 22 for his career. LeBron's at 30. LeBron's a better player. Doesn't mean LeBron's a better player. It means LeBron was more efficient. LeBron played in the team concept much better than Kobe. What if Kobe would have played more into the team concept and didn't shoot over three guys? Kobe always willing to take the hardest shot, which is going to lower your percentages. But there's a skill that I don't think they have stats for, and it's called shot creation. Shot creation is one of the most important things on the basketball court, having a player that can create their own shot. And there wasn't many people better than Kobe in the history of this game that can create his own shot. So that's what I say when I look at Kobe and say, talent-wise, he was better than LeBron. Stat-wise, LeBron is better. LeBron understands the concept of team. That's why when the Knicks lost to Cleveland, LeBron didn't do it scoring a bunch of points. He was like, no, I'm going to drive the ball and pass. I'm going to drive the ball and get my shooters hot. I'm going to drive the ball and get my shooters hot. Then I'm going to hit the shot at the end for the icing on the cake. That's using your team. 5 is always better than 1. And that's why I like the fact that basketball goes in ebbs and flows. Jordan brought the era of the hero ball. Jordan brought that era. Before him, it was more team ball. If you can go on YouTube, you look at the old Boston teams, you look at the old Knicks teams, that ball didn't hit the ground much. You didn't see players doing individual one-on-one moves back then. But Jordan was so good individually, he didn't need a pick or a screen for him to get his shot off. He was literally the best shot creator in the history of the game. But before the era of Jordan, if you look at the Lakers, it was ball movement. If you look at the Celtics, it was ball movement. It was team basketball back then. It was always team basketball. Before LeBron James, if you look at Larry Bird's stats, Larry Bird, I think for his career, averaged over 6 or 7 assists. He damn near was a walking triple-double too, but he didn't always get the triple-double. He would have like 35 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists. Check Larry Bird's stats. He was an all-around player. So what it is that I think that when Jordan came along, I mean, who doesn't want to be the hero? Who doesn't want to get all the accolades? A lot of players play like him, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's how Kobe was raised. Kobe plays that kind of game. But could you imagine if Kobe played in the Golden State Warriors system, coming off of screens, getting wide open shots? You're going to tell me he wouldn't be the best player in the NBA today? Coming off screens, getting wide open shots, getting picks for him, and not having to do a bunch of dribble moves and shooting over 3 people? Because one-on-one, that's like an open shot for Kobe. Team basketball has always been better than individual isolation ball. But there are times where you need isolation ball. But I'm a big believer in running your offense, running your system, making a defense work. And when I see Kristaps Porzingis, bringing it back to Kristaps, when I see him, and now sometimes he goes one-on-one because maybe the play is for him to shoot. Sometimes he goes one-on-one because the shot clock is low. That's understandable. But then there's times where he goes one-on-one, and I've said to myself, dude, you don't have it. Pass it back out and post up again. Repost. Pass it out, set a pick, get the ball back. You don't have to shoot it when you get it in that spot sometimes. And he does that, and he forces it, and that's when you get a bad shot. That's when you get – see, understand what a bad shot does a lot of times. It gets the other team in transition. That's how other teams go on runs, when you don't run through your offense and all your options. And prime example of that is Toronto made the comeback, right? They cut into the lead. How did the Knicks sustain? They kept moving the ball. They kept playing their system. They kept trusting their system in other players. Boston Celtics is a prime example of that. Even though they got Kyrie, and Kyrie gets a little, he does his own thing and he's unstoppable. I get that. But they have really good ball movement. They can get away with Kyrie doing his dancing is because they also have very good defense, which gives their offense more opportunities, like I said before. So that's what when I look at a team, when I'm watching a game, I'm looking for the team offense to be in rhythm. It's a beautiful thing to watch. It's like music. When you sing the ball whip around and the players moving in unison, even defense has a rhythm. And that third quarter, which you saw from the Knicks, was the defense in rhythm. They were rotating. It was like it was really beautiful to watch. I watched it again today. I watched that third quarter again just to see. And the rotations were tight. And some of the rotations switched up. Basically, they were confusing the Raptors. That's why you saw Lowry jump in the air and throw it to the wrong guy. They were anticipating the passes to the corners and things like that. That's when your offense is elite. Now, it's hard to do that for 4 quarters. That's extremely hard to do for 4 quarters, but that's what I'm talking about when you got a team concept and everybody buying in. When everybody's just a link in the chain, that's when the chain is strong. They say you're only strong as your weakest link. When everybody's playing together, you don't have any weak links. You're strong. You're strong. So that's what I was judging it on. And another example, when I seen Orlando Magic in the beginning of the season, they was like the best team in the East, right? And I was saying to myself, how are they doing this? Let me see. Now I'm going to look at the stats. Let me see how they do. Oh, Aaron Gordon is shooting 40-something% from three-point land. They're shooting, as a team, over 40% from three. I said, they're going to start losing. They're going to start losing because no team's going to shoot over 40% unless you're the Houston Rockets. They actually built their team to do that. But I didn't think they were going to stay. And what happened? What happened to the Orlando Magic? They've lost the last 6 games. They're under 500 because that shooting is not something you can count on game in, game out, unless you build your team like that. I got to give Houston credit. Their team is literally built to play that way. I don't know how that's going to work, but I'm going to tell you what happens with Houston. You will see games, especially in the playoffs, where they get crushed and blown out if the shots aren't falling. But for the most part, those shots usually fall. So And how do you stop a team like Houston? Basically, you stop the penetrators. You stop the Hardens and you make them one-on-one players. If you can guard the players who pass to the shooters, then it disrupts the flow of the game and the shooters. But back to Orlando, like I said, that's not sustainable. That kind of three-point shooting is not sustainable. What is sustainable? Defense. And the Knicks are winning games with defense. Their offense is a result of their defense. Hardaway scoring those points was a result of getting out in a fast break, the team being in transition, the other team not being set up. And Hardaway, speaking of Hardaway, I wanted to talk about Hardaway because I feel like I didn't give him enough. I didn't talk about him enough yesterday. And Hardaway, I just want to say this, folks. Right before our eyes, he's becoming a two-way player. He's not hurting your team defensively, at least recently. He's moving the ball. He's making the right pass. He's looking for his teammates. He's going to the boards but he's 6'6", and he's going to the boards. He's getting rebounds. He was the best player on the court yesterday. And he plays a lot of minutes, and he's pretty durable. His foot was hurting. We thought he was going to miss games. He's there. Folks, if Hardaway can manage to average 18, 5, and 5, those are all-star numbers, folks. Those are all-star numbers. If he gets over 20, it's definitely all-star numbers. With good defense, he's becoming a complete package right in front of our eyes. And he's 25, so there's reason to believe that he can improve on that. Because most of his career is in front of him, not behind him. And what he's shown is steady improvement. That's why with Kristaps, I believe Kristaps will eventually average 30 in this league. Once he gets stronger in those little guys, because Kristaps is a walking mismatch. So once he gets stronger, he'll be able to just turn around and shoot over guys. Sometimes he can't because they're pushing him, or he can't get his position because they're pushing him off of the block. Once he gets stronger, you're going to talk about like I said, he will be a hybrid of KD and Dirk Nowitzki. That is a Hall of Famer, folks. And I'm seeing Tim Hardaway look like he's literally almost doing the same thing that DeRozan did. DeRozan was kind of struggling early in his career, and then he found his spot. He found his way. And Hardaway may be finding his way, folks. I just got to say that. Now, another thing I wanted to get into, something I had wanted to talk about, is I wanted to talk about how do you judge a team? How do you know if a team is good? Well, I like to break the season up into 4 quarters. So I can say in this quarter, this team was good. In this quarter, this team was good. This quarter, that's how I like to judge a team. And 4 quarters is basically 20 and a half games. So there's no real half game. So I'm not going to judge that way. But basically, you judge a team after 20, 25 games. That's one block. And then you judge them after another 20, 25 games. That's another block. Maybe 18 games after that. You judge them in blocks of games. Now, I want to say this. The Knicks have played well, but they have played an awesome amount of home games. An awful lot, I meant to say. But they've played an awful lot. They played a lot of home games. And we got to see how that carries over to being off the court, because the Garden is becoming a home court advantage again, folks. So that means when you leave the Garden, there might be some struggles. You know who might not struggle away from the Garden? The stars on the team. Like Kristaps, he's not really. He's going to still be who he is. Hopefully Hardaway still can be who he is. But the Doug McDermotts, the Frank Ntilikina's, the guys off the bench, they might struggle away from home. That's just how it is. That's just how it goes. Let's see how they come together. Yesterday, Hardaway dived into the stands. Pay attention how quick Lance Thomas ran over to pick him up. How each time a player hits the floor, they ran over and pick him up. I'm going to tell you something. That's what people got to understand. Sometimes a player brings something to a team that's not quantifiable. And that's Enes Kanter. He has brought, I believe, from what I can see on the court, is a camaraderie is a way of thinking, us against you, us against the world. We're not friends with nobody. He's brought that kind of attitude to these youngsters, and he's young as well. He's brought a toughness to these guys. That is more important than what he's actually doing on the court. Because every guy on the Knicks believes right now. They believe they're good. You can't tell them they're not good. You can't tell them they're not a playoff team. Cancer has brought that to this team. He has brought that kind of feeling to the team. Players like that are irreplaceable. Those locker room guys are irreplaceable. I think one year, matter of fact, it happened in Indiana. I remember Indiana was doing well and they traded Danny Granger. You know, because Paul George was turning into a star. They traded Danny Granger, and guess what? The Pacers struggled. They lost their leader. Even though Danny Granger wasn't hardly playing and he was hurt, he was their leader. He was their locker room guy. They lost that. And you need that in the NBA. You need that in most leagues. You need someone who's there for a pick-me-up, who can help a guy through a shooting slump, who can probably tell a story about him being in the shooting slump. There are other things to basketball as well. Help a guy off the court. Help him dealing with, listen, think about a job that you might have had, and because this is the thing that people fail to realize, everything is connected. You break up with your girlfriend, it affects your job. You have things that go on outside of your job, it still affects your job. Situations with your family. And you know, it's good having not just a veteran, but just an older person who's been through that shit that can talk to you. See, that stuff never gets talked about because obviously that's personal moments between players. These guys are on the road most of the time, for years at a time. They're away from their family, friends, girlfriends, whatever. A lot of shit happens. So there's more than having a veteran presidents. There's more than having a veteran presence just on the court. It's life as well. Frank Ntilikina is 19 years old. He's 19 years old. He just became a man. So not only he's not in his home country, he's in the biggest city, in one of the biggest cities in the world, on one of the biggest stages in the world. That's a lot of pressure. Trust me, I know. Half of y'all guys that listen to this podcast, if you've ever performed in front of people, had to speak in front of a class in college, you know that's very difficult. Yeah, I know he's a pro and he's getting millions of dollars to do it, but he's still 19, folks. That's a lot. That's why we have Jarrett Jack. Like, don't worry about that. You're going to have a lot of bad games. There's going to be games where you're going to question your own ability, but keep playing. And the good thing is that Jarrett Jack can also still show him on the court. That is a good thing. And, you know, I mean, I'm sure there's times in the confines and the confidence of whoever his friend is on the team, maybe it's Jarrett Jack, he might say, you know, not for nothing, man, I really miss my family. How do you deal with not being around your family? How do you deal with not being around that cocoon, basically, your team, your home team that's been your team since you was born? You think that's easy? You think that's easy? Today is Thanksgiving. Half of those guys are not with their family. Not saying they all celebrate them, because a lot of people don't celebrate it. But either way, let's forget about the day that is Thanksgiving. The fact that on Thanksgiving, what happens is families get together. And what does that do to a person like Kristaps Porzingis? If his family isn't here, he's not with his family. On family get-together day, even if you don't celebrate Thanksgiving, you can appreciate families getting together. Yeah, Frank Ntilikina, maybe his mom and dad is here, but what if they not here? You don't think he's asking the veterans, how do you deal with that, not being around your family during important times or you know, things like that? How do you deal with that kind of pressure? So what I'm doing right now, I'm just giving you insight to in perspective to what a lot of these players go through. What a lot of these players have to deal with. I've never had to deal with that on that level. I've been in sales before where I'm working damn near 14 hours a day, but at that time I was single. I had no kids. And my mom and dad was like, go get that money, do what you got to do. But there was times where, when I used to get stressed out and I lose a deal, which literally means money out of my pocket, I'd be stressed. I call my mom. Like, this is fucked up. This is fucked up. Call my mom, have a drink, call my brother, call my father. So imagine, but you know what else helped me with those situations? Veteran sales agents. Don't worry, you're going to lose money in this business. When you make enough money, when you get a big deal, put some away for a rainy day because you're going to have a lot of them. And things like that is what helps you through. And a guy like Cantor, bringing it back to Cantor, he came from a winning situation. He came from a situation where Oklahoma City is a winning team, a playoff team. Russell Westbrook is old school throwback kind of player. He's not trying to be your friend when you're not on his team. We'll talk after the game. We'll talk after the season. We'll talk in the summer. If we really, and that's what I always say, if we really homies, even at work, at any job I've ever been at, I always say, if we really homies, when we're off the clock is when we gonna hang and when we talk. If we only talk when we at work, we're not really homies. We work friends. That's fine. And when I leave that job, that's it. It's done. I don't keep in touch. Why should I? If I've been working at a job for 5 years and me and you have never hung out outside the job or visit each other, or I don't know your family, you don't know mine, in 5 years, we're not friends, folks. We're not friends. We're just people who come to work and pass the time by being cordial and friendly to each other at work. You're a work friend. And when I'm not there anymore, that's it. So in basketball, that's a good mentality to have. Look, you on my team, I love you. When I'm on another team, fuck you. But if we still peoples, I'll holler at you in the off season. But one thing I wanted to say, another thing that Cantor does, that he brings a level of maturity for a 25-year-old. Of course, he's going through a situation in Turkey he's estranged from his family, yo. His family had to disown him so they wouldn't get hurt. That's crazy. So he's far more advanced than most of these guys. Basketball is easy to him compared to what's going on in his real life, in his personal life. But one thing I also appreciate about Cantor, when Cleveland, he mentioned against Cleveland, you know what he mentioned? That bottle game, right? He wasn't on the Knicks when that bottle game took place. So did he research it? Did he see it at the time and didn't like it? Now, recently against Toronto, before they won, he was aware that the Knicks had lost, I think, 10 straight games to Toronto. He was aware of things that when he wasn't on the team. That's a level of leadership. A lot of players don't care about that shit. You see, I think the Knicks need to keep a guy like that around. He's worth his contract because what he does and what he brings to the table goes beyond his stats. I don't know if you ever see it, but when he gets a rebound and gives the ball, you ever see how hard he runs up and down the court? He's just not a fast guy, but he runs hard down the court. He doesn't complain when he gets sit down. That guy has the right attitude. You cannot get rid of players like that. That's the culture you want on your team. That's the kind of guy you want on your team. He might have the ability to score over 20 points a game, but he's okay with scoring 13 and grabbing 14 rebounds. He's good with that, as long as we win. And that's the kind of guy you want to keep around. You see Courtney Lee balling out. Courtney Lee sometimes makes some real young guy mistakes every now and then, but Courtney Lee's balling out. Hardaway's balling. Everybody's playing. This is the best case scenario that's going on right now. And the next thing I wanted to get into, I might run a little long on this podcast. The next thing I wanted to get into also is, I was already talking about it, but I want to get back to it, is how you judge a team, and you judge them you judge them through blocks of games. You break it into 4. That's how I like to do it. But one thing I didn't mention is, if the Knicks were able to, now I'm going to get into wishful thinking, okay? So just bear with me on this. If the Knicks were able to duplicate these 20 games, they've only played 17 games so far, but let's say they let me see, just to make it 20 games, let's say after 20 games, they're 2 games over 500. That would make them 11 and 9. After 20 games, they're 11 and 9, right? After 40 games, if they duplicate 11 and 9, that's it. If they just stay 2 games over 500, after another 20 games, they'll be 22 and 18. Let's just say this. If they keep up this pace, they're on a pace to win about 45 games. Just 2 games over 500 over an 80-game season. If every quarter you're 2 games over 500, you're on your way to winning 44 to 45 games with a young team, with the players, the stars of the team. The best, when I say stars of the team, I want to be clear. I'm not saying stars in the general sense. I'm saying the best players on the Knicks, just to be clear. The stars on this team is Kristaps, Hardaway, Kanter. Those are the stars, the best players on the team. And they're leading the way. Courtney Lee is one of the best players on the team, too. I have to give him a shout. But they're leading the way. 25-year-old Hardaway, 25-year-old Kanter, 22-year-old Kristaps. And guess what? You're getting contributions from a 19-year-old in Ntilikina. You're getting big-time contributions from him, and he's 19. Doug McDermott is contributing. He's 25. Kyle O'Quinn is only, I think, 26, 27. Maybe he's 28. I'm not really sure. So you're getting contributions. The main contributions on this team is the young guys. And what I love about the young guys is when you're young, I had a guy, all right, let me just tell you this quick story. It's 1 second, actually. I had a friend of mine when I was working in real estate. You know, I had all these big dreams and goals and stuff like that and things I wanted to do. And I was already in my 30s at that time. I'm giving away my age just slightly, but it's obvious how old I am if you listen to these podcasts. So he said, you know, you have a young mind. That's what he told me. And I was like, why do you say I have a young mind? He said, because you're very optimistic about your future. You're very optimistic. You have a lot of hope in things you do. You believe that you really can achieve these things. And first of all, I'm still that way. Because my thing is, once you don't believe, why even try? Why not be optimistic when you have a choice? You can be negative, but why not be optimistic? It's really just a thought. It's just a thought pattern. It's just a process. Why not be optimistic? That's just me, right? But young people are usually optimistic. They're young, they're bright, they're the conquerors of the world, basically. When you're young, let me tell you, and I know I have quite a few listeners that are in their 20s, between 20 and 30. The world is your oyster. This is your earning time. This is your time where you get your money. This is your earning time. You still can be anything. You got so much time ahead of you, right? But you can't lose that optimism. You can't lose that. You lose your optimism, you lose it all. You lose your hope, you lose it all. And it makes me think of the New York Yankees. What the New York Yankees did this year. They were supposed to be rebuilding, but them youngsters was like, why can't we win? Why can't we do it? Why not? Shit. We in the major leagues. Why can't we have just as good a chance as anybody else? And that's why I never liked that word realistic. I just wanted to say that real quick because people always say, well, realistic, understand what realistic really, really means. It means like real. It's not real. The istic part makes it like real. It's not real. You have facts and then you have non-facts. Realistic doesn't fit. As long as there's a percentage of a chance for you to do something, for you to believe you can do it, it's still realistic. That's why we play the games. Let's take it to the Super Bowl. Was it last year or whatever when Atlanta was crushing New England Patriots? I mean, crushing them. Midway through the third quarter, it was still crushing them. So somebody would have said, well, it's not realistic for them to come back. That's bullshit. Is there an opportunity for them to come back? Yes. Okay. They can come back. And what they did, they came back and won. Now, you can say improbable because people mistaking, when people say realistic or unrealistic, they mean probable and improbable. Don't get caught up in that shit. This Knicks team, we don't know where it's going. We don't know where it's going. That's why I always keep saying enjoy the moments. We don't know where it's going. But I'm not going to sit up here and say, well, realistically, they really can't do this. I don't know what the fuck they can do. Because guess what? You know what's unrealistic? A 7'3" guy like Kristaps Porzingis. That's unrealistic. You see a 7'3" guy move like him. If somebody let me tell you something. If Kristaps played 20 years ago, they would never let him do the thing that, get your ass out of there. Get your ass down low. Could you imagine a 7'3"? See, I'm old enough to remember. You can't imagine a 7'3" guy handling the ball like him. He is literally the definition of unrealistic. People were saying he's going to be a project. It's going to take him 5 years to be good. Because they were going on this stupid notion of realism. What's realistic and unrealistic? It's just stupid. Anyhow, those are just a few things I wanted to share with the audience. I really, really appreciate y'all. I noticed my subscriptions are going up. My subs, as they say, is going up. I'm really, really appreciating that. This is fun. This is fun. I read all of your comments, the long comments. I don't care if your comments are 2 pages, because guess what? I'm giving you these podcasts and y'all giving me those comments. I read those comments. It's almost like it's like having a conversation. That's why I respond to some of the comments when I can, when I see them. Sometimes I don't see all the comments, but I try to respond to them because this is what this is. I'm trying to create a community. That's what this is, a community of smart, intelligent Knicks fans, optimistic Knicks fans. Because it's easy to, if you really want to, let's be realistic. Okay, only one team can win a championship every year. You think out of all these teams, you think all of these teams are say, oh, well, Toronto, we shouldn't even try, I mean, Golden State's going to win. New Orleans, oh, we shouldn't try. They're going to win. It don't matter. When Cleveland beat Golden State, oh, we're down 2-0 to a 73-win team. We shouldn't even try. It's unrealistic to believe that we can come back. See how stupid that fucking sounds? So when you hear dumb shit like that, just shake your head. Don't even say nothing. Don't even argue with those people. I'm going to be a forever optimist until I die. That's just the way to be. It's just my opinion. It's a choice. Just like being positive and negative is a choice. Anyway. But you can't let your optimism turn into expectations. I need to say that real quick. I left that out. Because even though I'm optimistic on things, I don't let that turn into expectations. Optimism is things you hope for, okay? Expectations is different. There's an old thing I live by. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. So even though I'm optimistic, I still know that things can go the other way as well. So, and I hope I didn't get too preachy. I guess I'm feeling a little Thanksgiving thing. I'm thankful to this audience. I'm thankful to the growth that this podcast has made in the recent months. It's been really a lot of fun when I look and I see 300, 400 views and, and I see the comments, and it really has been, it's been great. It's been great. I'm enjoying this just as much as the people listening. That's why I put this podcast up today. But I think I've talked myself out. I smell some of the food. I gotta get some of this food. And let's hope we can get a win. We got Atlanta Hawks. We should beat Atlanta Hawks. Oh, That's what I forgot to say. All right, so this is what I wanted to say. What constitutes a good team? That was actually, I meant to write all this down. What constitutes a good team, right? What constitutes a good team is not one game. What constitutes a good team is consistency. First of all, consistently beating the teams you should beat, according to your record and according to your talent, and occasionally beating the teams that maybe are as good or better than you. This is a formula. You should win, let's say, 65% of the teams you should beat, right? And about 40% of the teams that are, or at least 50% of the teams that you're equal to, and maybe 30% of the teams that are better than you. In other words, if you play 10 really good teams that are better than you, if you win 3 of those games, that's not a bad percentage because those teams are better than you. If you play teams that are you evenly match up against, you should win half of those games. And the teams that you're better than, you should win at least 65% of those games. Really, sometimes even a higher number. One thing about the old school Knicks, they was very good at beating teams that they were supposed to beat. They probably was more in the 75% percentile. They probably was way up there. So a team like the Hawks, the Knicks need to come into that game tomorrow seriously, looking to crush them. Play your system, play it all the way through, and crush them. Literally. This is a game where the Knicks have to look at it as we're going to be up big by halftime. We're going to play our starters a little bit in the third quarter, and then it's going to be garbage time by the fourth quarter. That's what the Knicks should be aiming for. And what I mean is you respect your opponent, but you understand this is a team that's tanking, but they have the ability to win the game, so you take them seriously. And even when you get up by 20, I realize the Knicks are not doing a good job holding leads. Get up by 30. Get up by 40. Take their heart. You see, and the reason why these teams also been coming back on the Knicks, because the Knicks have these big leads, but they're not taking the team's heart. It's a difference. You can lead by 10 and a team know they can't beat you. And you can lead by 25 and the team says, we can beat these bitch-ass motherfuckers. We can beat them. We can come back on them. So the Knicks have to start to learn to not only close games, but snatch the heart of your team. Let them know there's nothing you could do. We got you. And when you do that, that's when you start seeing other teams give up. We used to always love when me and my friends, we play against teams in different neighborhoods or whatever, basketball, football, when they start arguing amongst each other, we used to love it. That's when we know we got them. We got them. They arguing, and next thing you know, they not going to want to play together. They're going to lose their confidence, and we going to crush them. And that's the next step of the evolution of this team. Anyway, this has been Knicks Home Court, episode number 74, a little bonus Thanksgiving. And this is my thanks back to the listeners, something for you to listen to, either while you're eating, after you eat, whenever you want to listen to it tomorrow. You know, put your feet up, chill, have your drink. If you're drinking, have your smoke. If you're smoking, that's your business. It's all good. Have a peaceful and enjoyable Thanksgiving. And I'm out. Knicks Home Court, episode 74, Greg Armstrong. Peace.